supposed to be in the quaint cottage nestled at the edge of Cedar Ridge. Sarah and I were captivated by its rustic charm, surrounded by whispering pines and a gentle brook. But as we settled in, an inexplicable disquiet began to weave through our days and nights. It started with subtle oddities, misplaced belongings, an open window I was certain I had closed, Sarah's favorite earrings appearing on the kitchen counter, though she'd left them by the sink. We tried to rationalize these occurrences, blaming them on our forgetfulness, but a nagging suspicion burrowed into our minds. Then came the phone calls, a series of chilling silences that cut through the stillness of our home. Each time I answered, I was met with a void. No breathing, no background noise, only a profound hush that seemed to echo my own racing heartbeat. One night, as the moon cast a silver glow through the curtains, I woke to an unsettling feeling. The house creaked under the weight of an unseen presence, and the air turned frigid, as if the cottage itself was holding its breath. The sensation of being watched was palpable, a gaze that I could feel but not see. The next day, I discovered a small hidden door in the basement, half concealed behind an old cabinet. It led to a narrow, cobweb-laden crawl space that disappeared into darkness. Sarah begged me not to explore it, her eyes wide with fear, but I was drawn by an inexplicable need to uncover the truth. That evening, as we sat huddled together, a sudden crash echoed from upstairs. Gripping a flashlight, I cautiously ascended the stairs. Our bedroom was in disarray, the contents of our dresser scattered across the floor, the window flung open to the night. Yet there was no sign of an intruder. As we lay awake in bed, the cottage no longer felt like a haven, but a stage for some unseen actor, playing out a sinister performance. We were not alone, and the realization that something was sharing our home, lurking in the shadows, observing us with unseen eyes, was a chilling revelation. The days that followed were shrouded in a mist of unease. The cottage, once a symbol of our new life together, now felt like a cage. Shadows seemed to stretch and twist into unsettling shapes, and the whispering pines sounded like hushed conversations. Sarah's laughter, which once filled the rooms with joy, had faded into silence. She moved through the house like a wraith, her eyes constantly darting to dark corners and closed doors. I could see the fear etched into her face, a mirror of my own apprehension. One afternoon, I decided to confront whatever was haunting us. I set up cameras in the corners of the rooms, hoping to catch a glimpse of our hidden observer. The first night's footage revealed nothing but the eerie stillness of an empty house. But on the second night, the camera in the living room captured something chilling, a fleeting shadow, human in shape but distorted, that moved with an unnatural fluidity. That revelation sent a ripple of terror through us. Our home was no longer our own. It belonged to something else, something that defied explanation. Sarah clung to me, her voice barely a whisper. "What does it want from us?" she asked, her words heavy with dread. The feeling of being watched grew more intense, a constant pressure that weighed on our every moment. It was as if the house itself was alive, its walls and floors whispering secrets in a language we couldn't understand. Then, one rain-soaked evening, the unimaginable happened. We were sitting in the living room when a cold draft swept through the room, and the lights flickered and went out. In the glow of the fireplace, we saw it, a figure standing in the corner, barely discernible yet unmistakably there. Its presence was suffocating, a darkness that seemed to absorb the light around it. We ran, fleeing into the night, the rain drenching us as we escaped the house. We drove to the nearest motel, our hearts pounding, our minds reeling from the encounter. Lying in that sterile, impersonal room, we understood the grim reality. Our peaceful life at Cedar Ridge had been shattered. We had stumbled into a nightmare, and the shadow of our unseen watcher seemed to stretch far beyond the walls of the cottage. In the suffocating confines of the motel room, Sarah and I grappled with the shattered pieces of our reality. The memory of the figure in our cottage clung to us like a cold shroud. Sleep was elusive, each creak and whisper of the night a reminder of the terror we had fled. The following day, under a leaden sky, I ventured back to the cottage, driven by a desperate need for answers. The once charming facade now loomed like a sentinel of despair. As I stepped inside, the air felt thick, charged with an unspoken warning. I forced myself to revisit the basement, the site of my disturbing discovery. With each step, the air grew colder, and the oppressive silence was punctuated only by the beating of my own heart. The hidden crawl space was just as I had left it, a gaping maw that seemed to breathe a malevolent life of its own. Later, as I reviewed the new camera footage, my blood turned to ice. There in the grainy frames was the figure again, moving with a ghostly grace through our home. It stopped in front of the camera, and for a moment I thought I saw a glimmer of something human in its form. But then it vanished, leaving behind a haunting void. That night, Sarah and I lay awake, the motel's flickering neon sign casting an eerie glow through the window. We spoke in hushed tones about our options, each one more hopeless than the last. The cottage, our dream home, had become a wellspring of nightmares. Then a realization struck me with chilling clarity. The figure, the disturbances, they weren't random. They were targeted, personal. This entity, whatever it was, knew us, knew our fears. It was as if the cottage itself had awakened something dormant, something that had been waiting for us. As the night stretched on, a sense of inevitability settled over us. We couldn't run from this. It was part of us now. The hidden observer, a specter of our own making, had woven itself into the fabric of our lives. We were entangled in a web of fear and mystery with no way out but through the heart of our terror. As Sarah and I returned to the cottage, a sense of doom wrapped itself around us like a shroud. The building, once a symbol of our dreams, now loomed ominously against the gray sky, its windows dark, soulless eyes peering into our very being. Stepping inside, the air was thick with the stench of decay, as if the house itself were decomposing with our hopes. The walls seemed to pulsate with a malevolent life, and every shadow whispered secrets of despair and madness. Night fell like a curtain, and with it came the oppressive presence of our unseen tormentor. The shadows grew bolder, stretching across the walls like grasping fingers. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the eerie creaks and groans of the house, a symphony of dread. Then, in the heart of darkness, it appeared. The figure, more terrifying than ever, its form a swirling vortex of shadows. It stood before us, a manifestation of every fear we had ever known, its very presence a suffocating force that threatened to obliterate our sanity. I found my voice, a desperate whisper in the void. "What are you?" The figure remained silent, but in its swirling darkness I saw flashes of our own memories, our anxieties, our fights, the moments of despair we had experienced within these walls. It was a mirror of our darkest selves, a creature born from the very essence of our fears. The revelation was a descent into madness. We realized that this entity was not just haunting the cottage. It was born from us, a twisted offspring of our own minds. We had unknowingly nurtured it with our anxieties, fed it with our despair, until it grew into an unstoppable force. The figure advanced, and with each step, the light dimmed, the air grew colder, until we were enveloped in an all-consuming darkness. We clung to each other, lost in a sea of despair, as the entity wrapped its shadows around us, dragging us deeper into an abyss from which there was no escape.